What's going on, everyone? CJ Kaltenbach here of FantasyCruncher.com, and today I'm giving a preview of the January 4th NBA main slate. Going to use FanDuel pricing just because it's got one position per player, but 90% of the stuff works the same. But if you're playing DraftKings, some of this might be slightly different based on the percentage of the cap that each player is. So just keep an eye on that. And just to figure out, by the way, what the percentage of the cap is, just divide the player's salary by the salary cap on the site you're playing, and voila, percentage of the salary cap. Okay, let's start with the first game on the slate. It's Utah and Orlando. No injury news of note here that's new. Jonathan Isaac still out. Aaron Gordon returned tonight on Friday, played 31 minutes, so I think that he's going to be able to play full minutes moving forward. Only plays of real interest here are Nikola Vucevic against that big center and Rudy Gobert. Vuce likes that mid-range jumper that should be available to him. 8,200, fair price, given the fact that there's no Jonathan Isaac right now. Bojan Bogdanovic hasn't had a good Bojan Bogdanovic shooting game in a while. You kind of see he's just been okay. He's had put up some good usage rates, but he hasn't had the 11 for 16 game or the 9 for 16 game. And when he does that, he's going to really pop at this 5,500 salary. Good matchup against the Orlando Magic, too, which are playing smaller at the wing, more three-guard, a lot more Terrence Ross. That's a pretty good matchup for Bojan Bogdanovic. So 5,500, he kind of sticks out. Joe Ingles, 5,400. Still in consideration with Mike Conley out. His usage rate goes way up in those situations. Jordan Clarkson, kind of a nice bench option. I think I'd prefer Terrence Ross to that 4,400 price tag. But again, he's going to have to make shots. So there's definitely boom-bust upside here with either one of these players. Other than that, there really isn't a big need to get to Royce O'Neal. We've got some value on the slate. So that's kind of it. Donovan Mitchell, 7,500 against the Magic. I'm just not a Donovan Mitchell fan. So I would acknowledge, a little colored on him. I'm just not really impressed with this game. He kind of just has to put up 30 real-life points to be fantasy viable, and it's just that's hard to do when you're not a stud, level 1 stud. And for me, Donovan Mitchell's not there yet. It's a good matchup for sure. They haven't played in a couple days, so I don't hate the spot necessarily, but I'm not wild about it. And Utah was resting while the Magic played, so that's always nice to have that scenario, but for me, I would kind of rather not play Donovan Mitchell, but he's fine if you like him. Okay, let's move on to the next game, unless I'm missing something here, which I don't think I am. So let us move on to the next game, Indiana and Atlanta. Atlanta's still the walking wounded, so let's kind of just recap where we're at with the Atlanta injuries. John Collins left the game tonight with a back injury. And did not return, so I think he's probably closer to doubtful tonight. Kevin Huerter did play tonight against Boston. They probably will need him tomorrow, and of course Trae Young has been back, and I believe Jabari Parker returned tonight, but I can't say I was watching that game too intensely. I was watching the Wizards and the Portland Trail Blazers with a lot more interest, so I'm trying to get that to load up here real quick here. Let me get that off of your screen. Hopefully you can't see that. All right, good. Let me get that off of my screen here. Let me make sure it's not showing up on your screen. It is not. And let me search Roto World here for injuries. I was trying to do it on my phone, but it's just not quite quick enough. So I believe Jabari Parker returned tonight. Maybe it wasn't. Let's see. Jabari Parker. Stats. News. Jabari Parker was available, and he played tonight as well. So I think Jabari Parker becomes your default value option, 3,800. He only played 15 minutes against Boston, so you have to be careful there, I guess, if he's on a minutes limit. But, his minutes really only decreased when John Collins came back, so you think he'd be able to get back to his 27, 28-minute job. Collins did play center. He started at center in this spot. So maybe the minutes just go to Alex Len, who's 4,400 against Indiana. Indiana plays big, so I could see Alex Len drawing that start, actually, the more I think about it. I think I like Len more than Jabari Parker. I think you could get 26 to 27 minutes, even a little bit higher. Maybe you can get to 28, 29 minutes as well. think that's a fantastic option for you at 4,400. Let's see. I mean, Kevin Huerter's probably a good option at 5K, but probably more so on DraftKings where he's got that 3-point bonus. DeAndre Hunter started at the power forward slot tonight against Boston, played 27 minutes. He's just not a high usage player. Really tough to trust. So really kind of leaves you back to Trae Young. Someone's going to have to pick up the usage. You know what we can do? Let us go to my good old friend at Add More Funds, and let's do a search. Just to kind of see, because I'm not sure of this one. And if I'm not sure, I shouldn't just guess. I should look. So let me put Trae Young on the floor, and let me take Jabari and John Collins off the floor and see what we get in terms of usage, because someone has to take it. Let's see what we got. Trae Young, 36.4. Alex Len is the second highest at 20. And you can kind of just see a bunch of other guys just kind of getting middling usage. So really kind of is just Alex Len and Trae Young. Fantasy points per minute wise, I guess I can sort by FanDuel. It's Trae Young, it's Alex Len, and then there really is kind of a big gap to everyone else. So, all right, looks like I had that one spot on. That always feels nice to know. And the sample size is 321 minutes this season with Trae Young on and with those guys off. So that's not the smallest sample size in the world, but makes sense. Alex Len and Trae Young and everyone else kind of makes sense to me. All right, on the Indiana side, Victor Oladipo has returned to practice. So he's looking to get back by the end of the month, but that's still a few weeks away. Malcolm Brogdon, of course, is listed as doubtful. Oh, that's for Thursday's game. What's he doing for today's game? Obviously, if Brogdon's out, the guy we're looking for is Aaron Holiday. T.J. Warren and Jeremy Lamb have had good shooting games lately. Aaron Holiday's big shooting game will come in these type of situations soon. So he's the guy I keep trying to roster in this spot. He did not practice Friday and will miss at least 2 more games. So we're good. He's out. So for me, if we go ahead and look at the Indiana Pacers with Aaron Holiday on the floor and with Malcolm Brogdon off the floor, we see that Aaron Holiday jumps to a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy, playing over 30 minutes. Pace up spot here against Atlanta. Really good spot for Aaron Holiday. Biggest winners are Sabonis, and it's really about it. Jeremy Lamb is a solid option about fantasy point per minute. His price has probably gone up a little bit, 5,500 coming off that great shooting day. Here's the problem with Jeremy Lamb for me. We look at Jeremy Lamb coming off that break game, 43 fantasy points, 37 minutes. We like that. But what can cause problems here, and I'm going to blow up my screen just so you can see it, the shooting numbers. You can see 9 of 13. Let me reopen the box so it's a little easier to read. Jeremy Lamb. So he met 9 of 13 from the field, 5 of 5 from 3. That's not sustainable. So he made 7 free throws when he hadn't attempted more than 3 free throws basically in a month. So for me, this is a red flag of a guy who's going to regress a little bit. Doesn't mean that he's a bad play at 5,500. It's a great matchup against Atlanta. But, you be careful here what you're projecting Jeremy Lamb for. T.J. Warren, pretty similar situation. T.J. Warren's been doing this kind of all year, just making everything he takes. And I've come on my Twitch stream, this YouTube channel, my own house, saying T.J. Warren will eventually stop shooting this well. He's not going to shoot like this an entire season. And he's got bad shooting games in here. And when they happen, you can see that they are huge duds and they're going to kill your teams. But, he gets a usage bump again with no Malcolm Brogdon. So 5,300, viable option here against Atlanta. I would just caution this is the one position Atlanta can actually defend decently well. So keep that in mind as well. TJ McConnell kind of priced out for me in terms of the backup point guard value. I think on a 9-game, I think it's a 9-game slate, right? 9-game slate? 9-game slate. We can definitely do better in the value department than rostering him today. Okay, let's us move on to the next game, which is the Oklahoma City Thunder against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Injury-wise, for the Oklahoma City Thunder, I think they're finally healthy. which has been a pleasant surprise. Will be a pleasant surprise with this team because they've had someone hurt, I feel like, forever. They're completely healthy. So they've got their big four, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chris Paul, Dennis Schroeder, and Danilo Gallinari. The first thing that immediately stands out to me is the Danilo Gallinari price, that this is way too low for Danilo Gallinari. Look at these usage rates, even before and after the injury. We're looking at 25% usage rates against this Cleveland Cavaliers team. If he's sporting a 25% usage rate against the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's going to pay off this 5,800 tag and some. I know he hasn't done it a ton this season, but the teams he has done it against are teams that are pretty similar in defensive style to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Chicago, Minnesota, the Pelicans. I really like this spot for Gallinari. I know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's been taking that next step, and his usage is going up, and that's great, but it really hasn't affected Danilo Gallinari so far. It's been mostly kind of Chris Paul that's been willing to take the back seat. So Danilo Gallinari, 5,800, stands out as a very strong option today, but I like Dennis Schroeder at 61 as well against this Cleveland Cavs team. Their bench is awful, and he's going to get drop minutes against the bench. I really think all four of these guys are in play. You know, they're all priced really fairly. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is kind of the one that I would say is most overpriced, especially on FanDuel where you don't get those 3-point bonuses. And you can kind of see, again, that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's just been kind of shooting the ball really well. But, again, hey, players get hot, right? I can totally understand if you're like, hey CJ, you know, this is a really good matchup for him and he's hot. Well, why do you think he's going to stop now? Fair argument, but I'm just going to always not project someone to shoot 60, 65% from the field because I just know that's not going to happen on average, right? So just be careful. I'm not saying you avoid Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, just kind of more of a be careful buying it, right? It's kind of like a piece of fruit. Look for make sure it doesn't have any oh my goodness, this metaphor was so good too. Bruises was the word I couldn't come up with. So you just got to make sure your fruit doesn't have any bruises on it, you know? Man, that would have been such a good analogy if I hadn't whiffed on it like twice. Oh well. For the Cavs, we don't have news that Kevin Love's going to sit. I mean, that's always a possibility, so kind of keep your ears and eyes open for that one. Larry Nance is still out. For me, this is more about the Cleveland guards not being priced up correctly yet. We've got Colin Sexton at 5,100, Darius Garland at 4,500, C.D. Osman at 4,300, Kevin Porter at 4,200. Jordan Clarkson's gone, and that just means there's a lot of usage available. So if I was to just show you the Cleveland Cavaliers on the season, and I might have to do some magic to make Clarkson up here because he's on a different team. Let me just pull up his usage, right? So Jordan Clarkson was the second highest usage player on his minutes on the floor, 26.2%. That has to be replaced, right? So if we can just look at Kevin Love and these other players like Darius Garland and Kevin Porter Jr. and Tristan Thompson, right? Like this, so when I take Jordan Clarkson off, this usage is going somewhere. And so let's just take a look and see where it goes, right? So Colin Sexton draws a bump to 27 minutes. Kevin Love really doesn't do anything, but you can see Kevin Porter, Darius Garland, Tristan Thompson. They all pick up a little bit more of usage here. And if I take Nance off the floor, this is just going to even improve those numbers as well. So again, you know, you can kind of see Colin Sexton kind of becomes a really high usage player here in these situations. So and you know, if I look at the fantasy points per minute too, he's almost a fantasy minute player. You know, if I look at Sexton's minutes on the season, he's a guy that's playing 32, 34 minutes a night. Basically a fantasy point per minute. That's basically 30 to 35 fantasy points. For 5,100, that's just fantastic. So I think he's a really strong option. You know, same idea with Darius Garland and C.D. Osman. I mean, I understand they've been a little more hit or miss, but they're going to be usage guys too, and Kevin Porter will be as well. I really like these guys. I mean, Sexton's clearly the best of the bunch, but point guard's always the hardest position to find, especially on FanDuel. You only play two of them. But you just look at these shot attempts, like 17, 15, 17, 20, and 20, and he's 5,100. That's a really, really good price. So Colin Sexton's a guy that's definitely on the radar and should be on your radar as well today as well. You know, in terms of the cheapy options, what have they done with Dante Exum so far? I haven't really looked at him yet. So he's been playing just super limited minutes, high usage when he plays. This is kind of a situation we kind of just have to watch. Once he gets into those 20s for minutes, like 20 to 24, and kind of builds up to the full Jordan Clarkson role, we're definitely going to want to be paying that high 3K, low 4K price for Dante Exum until as those minutes rise, like hopefully the price doesn't, and we can pop off a couple value games, but he's not there yet. Other than that, Steven Adams is fine. Tristan Thompson's fine. They're not like these plays that I'm certainly going to seek out. But really for me, it's Danilo Gallinari, and it's those Cleveland guards that I think that I would be really focusing in on if you wanted to attack this game. And it's got a pretty mediocre total, so maybe it's not the one you are going to attack. But just something for food for thought as you kind of look through these other later games on the slate. All right, Denver at Washington. Let's talk about the Denver injury situation because that is just always constantly changing here. So right now it's Gary Harris returned, I believe. Let me look. The entire Wizards team's still out, but that's not really what you're looking for. We're looking for is Gary Harris still out, and I believe Harris returned. Yeah, Gary Harris returned last time. And that kind of just really makes this whole Denver situation a mess. Because, well, Michael Porter Jr. has been playing really good basketball, 4,100, and he's just been playing really well off the bench. He got to start when Millsap was out, and he's just played well. He 11 for 12, obviously. He's not going to shoot that well forever, but he's a really good player. And he was a guy that was going to go in the top 5 before that injury in college. And so when I see them finally taking this guy out of the woodshed, and it's a guy, by the way, that they've been touting as like a really good player ever since camp, right? So they've been clearly just easing him back, and it looks like they're kind of just letting the reins out, which is fine, but it just kind of kills the upside for everyone else. Like, this is another higher usage player on the floor, and it's like, okay, how are we going to get to the ceiling in terms of fantasy points when we've got Jokic, Barton, Murray, Millsap, and now we're tacking on another player in Michael Porter Jr. And that doesn't, Mason Plumlee plays well off the bench, and Monty Morris plays well off the bench, and like that's all great. And this spot against the Wizards, there definitely is upside. I'm not saying just fade the entire Denver team. I acknowledge that sounds just as insane to me as it would to you. But I'm just gonna say be careful here. Like if let's just go take a look at the Denver rotation. I think this is one that, taking the time to kind of just look at this, I think will kind of illustrate the point a little bit. So if I look at the Denver Nuggets rotation, right, and you can kind of just see, the minutes are down for everyone. Like, Jokic randomly just played 24 minutes. I mean, he was in foul trouble, I would assume. But still, right? Like, okay, so Plumlee picked up extra minutes for Jokic. But even if you just, give Jokic that, what is that? 7 minutes back, Jokic would have played 31, Harris would have played 36, Barton 32, Millsap 28, Porter 24, and sure, 3 of these guys went off, but for me the issue is just how are you going to project that? How are you going to predict which ones go off? And I mean, the Wizards are, they're really bad defensively, and so I totally understand that you can just be like, hey, they're going to do well. It's just their pricing here is just not. Jokic at 8,900 is the one that stands out. Right? But he's kind of back to just being not the pass-heavy assist guy, right? Because the big difference here between the big games and the small games is purely the assists. 0, 4, 4, 10, big game. It's bad game 4, big game 10, bad game 5, good game, right? You can just kind of see, all the big games have the assists. And I think a lot of that is going away because of the rotation they're running now. So, if we look at Jokic, right? Specifically here on this chart. Let me make sure you can see the whole chart. Yeah, you can see the whole chart. So here's the problem. Jokic is playing almost all of his minutes with Jamal Murray on the floor. So there just isn't going to be as much, running through Jokic when Monty Morris is on the floor. They kind of run those rotations. So for me, the price is nice, and the Wizards, he can get there in points and rebounds against the Wizards. I'm not disputing that. It's just that I think it's going to be a little harder than people are giving it credit for. And so I would just keep an eye on that as well, as you're kind of looking through the slate, looking for options as value opens up later in the day. This is a situation that maybe you go, this is Jokic is going to be super popular, and I acknowledge he can burn me here, but maybe I'll go play Jamal Murray, or I'll play Will Barton, and I'll take another high-end center to be contrarian. Because I think there's ways that Jokic fails in this spot. It's not Hassan Whiteside, right? I mean, if you read my article, the primer, I think I called Hassan Whiteside the best play on the entire slate. And it simply was just a matchup against the Wizards. But Jokic is no Whiteside in terms of just rim running and rebounding and blocks. Like that's just not quite his game. So it's a good spot, but I think people are going to kind of translate like, oh, Whiteside did so well against this Wizards team, therefore Nikola Jokic will have to as well. Obviously, that sounds insane, but that's how, you kind of implicitly think sometimes. So keep an eye on that as well. All right, that's kind of the Denver side. The Washington side, obviously it all depends if Bradley Beal plays or not. It's a back-to-back. So I suspect they just sat him on the front end to let him play the back end. That's just my guess. We'll see. There were some quotes post-game that made it sound like he was a little more doubtful than that. Obviously, if Beal is out, Jordan McRae is the top option. Isaiah Thomas got ejected as chalk. Can't imagine he's going to get suspended. I was watching that game, and when they reviewed it, I was like, all right, they're not going to uphold this ejection. It was a pretty insane ejection. Sorry. There was no intent there to be pushing a referee. He was trying to save his balance, like you do, like you reach for a table or something. He just happened to hit a referee. Whatever. I thought it was really dumb, but so be it. So Isaiah Thomas price down now to 4,400. He's a really good option as well. Should be able to pick up the pace a little bit as well. So, Troy Brown really hasn't done a whole lot in these spots. He's the guy that, if you look at the point per minute, would be the guy that should benefit. Hasn't shot the ball well, hasn't really been that defensive force. Been kind of standing in the corner a little bit, running on those pick and rolls. I kind of am out on Troy Brown, but if you want to give him one more crack, I totally would understand it. But other than that, it's really for me just Jordan McRae and Garrison Matthews too. He needs to shoot more, but I'm not sure the Wizards are going to give him those cracks. Gary Payton II played a ton of minutes, but again, that was just because of the Isaiah Thomas ejection, so don't get too carried away with that one either. This will be one of the highest totals on the board. I would suspect it's going to be in the 2-4. Actually, you know what? I can look it up. Because I am in Las Vegas, so I can look it up in the Westgate app, and it's not going to get mad at me for being out of state. Let me pull this up real quick. I would suspect this is already up, so let me look. Sports pregame. Pro basketball. NBA. Actually, there is no total up here, so they're going to wait on Beal, but it will be very high. I suspect it'll be right back in the 230s range like it was on Friday night. Okay, let's move on to the next game. This is one of the more interesting games on the slate, Boston and Chicago. So this is a 8 p.m. Is that right? Yeah, this is an 8 p.m. Eastern lock. So the first thing I would note here, actually, let me make sure this time zone's right. Let me just... Yeah, okay, cool. It is so it's an 8 p.m. Eastern first pitch tip off here. We're probably going to be up against it to find out if Kemba Walker's going to play, if Kanter's going to play. Those are all things that we are going to have to find out. And obviously they're going to make a difference. Robert Williams is still out for the Celtics. So if Kanter can't go, and by the way, if Kanter plays, he's one of the best center options on the board against this Bulls team. You're looking at Daniel Tice playing big minutes. He played a bunch here on Friday night, 24. He shot the ball really well for him and put up a nice game. And his price went down, of course, because the salary was out before Kanter got hurt. So he's an interesting option. What to do with Tice, though, if we don't know before lock? That's tough. That's one that you really have to kind of just think long and hard about and see what the other options that become available as the day kind of goes along. But I think for now, if we know Kanter's out, Tice is a perfectly valid option. He's going to have to play 30 minutes. I'm not sure. Grant Williams, I guess they can get away with that against the Bulls. I guess. But that's not exactly like a dream scenario there for the Celtics. I guess Semi Ojeleye could come back into the rotation, but certainly wouldn't want to test and see what the hell they really would do in that kind of situation. If Kemba's out, Jaylen Brown, fantastic option. His price going down. Makes sense. The Bulls play a little slower, but he's been just on fire. Got 24 and 10 here. Put up 39 FanDuel points. I think he's an interesting option here. Gordon Hayward's an option. Jason Tatum 8,100. I love Jason Tatum as much as the next guy. That's a little too rich for my blood. Just really don't see how, like, he can have the great shooting day, and if he does, kind of just let him beat you at that point. He just isn't the consistent assist and steal block guy to really just beat this price. Like, he's only done beat this price tournament wise one time in the, like, since basically December 4th. Like, that's, and he's done it twice basically since the beginning of December. So, like, even if I wasn't cherry picking days. So he, like, does it like once a month. Like, let him beat me at that point. And that's one of my favorite players in the league. So that really tells you everything you know about the spot for him. Chicago-wise, boy, I can't imagine playing anyone for Chicago. Their whole team is probable. They're always going to play. Until they start getting hurt again, I just kind of think in this spot, pace down spot for them, good defense in the Boston Celtics, I think you kind of need to pick a different spot and target some other players. All right, Charlotte at Dallas. Dallas 12-point favorites. Kristaps Porzingis, I believe, is ruled out. I thought he was ruled out. Let me check the other screen. Thought I read he was ruled out. Let's see. Dallas. Kristaps. What do you got for me? Let's see what we got. Yeah, he's been ruled out. So he is ruled out. DeLon Wright is questionable. We'll have to see about that. But with Kristaps out, we saw a new rotation for Dallas. So they cut Jalen Brunson out of the rotation, and he was mega chalk. I didn't have any, but I wouldn't have projected a DMP until there was foul trouble. Like, that's obviously a way of an outlier. But what we did, actually, you know what? Let's pull it up on the screen. You know what? We have this wonderful tool here. Let's use it. So let's just kind of take a look at what the Dallas Mavericks did. And they definitely had to get a little funky because of some foul trouble. So what they did is they started Justin Jackson and JJ Barea. And what they did there was then they staggered JJ Barea and Luka Doncic. Now, was Doncic in foul trouble here? Or was this just a turnover? Did he just get pulled? No, this was just a straight pull. There was only one foul at this point. Okay. So they pulled him early for Seth Curry. And so they ran Seth Curry and Barea. And basically what they did is they kept two of Seth Curry, Doncic, and Barea on the floor basically at all times. So I think that's actually true. I think it is at all times. I'm just trying to scroll through here. In the fourth quarter, I guess, when the game was out of hand, they didn't do that. It wasn't really out of hand, I guess. There was foul trouble issues here, too. Like, Doncic was in foul trouble. So, Doncic was probably projected to come back in here in the back end of the quarter and couldn't. And that's when Jalen Brunson checked in. So, I think that's actually probably a really fair take to say that this would have been Luka Doncic and Seth Curry. So, kind of as I'm projecting out today, I think the first thing I would try to note is that I would probably be projecting that two of JJ Barea, Doncic, and Seth Curry to be on the floor at all times, and that honestly makes Seth Curry a really strong play. Now, could this have just been because Seth Curry was hot? I guess, but with no Tim Hardaway Jr. and with no Kristaps Porzingis, they just need someone else to score on the floor. Like, they don't have like any true scoring. Maxi Kleber off the bench is kind of nice, but they don't have like a true bench scorer other than Seth Curry. So I think that's going to be something that we kind of see moving forward here as well. Let me just make sure. I don't think this was matchup based. No, this wasn't matchup based. I just think this is definitely a situation where they just need to have scoring on the floor if those guys are out. So for me, I think Seth Curry and JJ Barea are strong options. Now, you could wonder, did JJ Barea hit a minutes cap here? I think that's a fair question to ask. Let's just take a look at JJ Barea's minutes. I can't say I've looked at them this year. So has JJ Barea played 21 minutes? No, he has not. So this is, I think, a minutes cap. So this is interesting because, JJ Barea has a strong and long injury history. With an Achilles. He's coming back from it this year, so I think this is the minutes cap for him. God, if that's the case, Seth Curry is going to play for all the minutes in the world he can handle. What's his price? 4,500. They moved him up, but man, he's so scoring dependent. But man, if he's cheaper elsewhere, I would love Seth Curry. Because if JJ's can only play 20 minutes, it's going to just be like... I mean, first of all, Luka Doncic is obviously the world's best player, right? Like, his usage rate's going to be a million. It was only 33%, but he was in foul trouble and just still crushed. Like, you couldn't get me to fade Luka until we got to, like, 12K at this point, given the situation with Porzingis out and Tim Hardaway Jr. out. And if DeLon Wright's out, too, I mean, they're going to just be struggling for scoring. Maxi Kleba, I think, is 5,300. Man, that's tough. But I think you have to give a strong look to Luka Doncic. I think you have to give a strong look to Seth Curry. JJ Barea, 21 minutes, you just can't play him. Even if it was like 24, I'd be like, you could do it, but 21 is just not enough. So for me, for Dallas, it's really just Luka Doncic, and then how much Seth Curry can we kind of embrace at 4,500? That's pretty slate dependent. So really, we'll kind of have to see how the injury news plays out as the day goes on. Charlotte side, what you see is what you kind of get at this point. Terry Rozier can have the hot game from the field. If he does, great. He's going to break the slate. If you got the magic 8-ball that can accurately predict that, let me know. We can retire on a beach island in no time if you got that magic 8-ball. Could be Devontae Graham, could be Terry Rozier. They really haven't gone off together. That is one thing I've noticed, is that it's kind of either Rozier or Graham, but I can't say I've actually put it together. I just, if I just quickly look at this, right? Terry Rozier, great game, 2 bad games, good game, okay game, and then 2 great games in Utah and Cleveland. And it's like Utah, Cleveland, bad, good games, then bad. So that's kind of the one thing I've noticed. I've kind of been playing one max of those guys, but other than that, nothing really stands out here. PJ Washington's still too cheap. Hasn't flashed a ton of ceiling, but we've seen it earlier in the year. If he's going to be playing this type of minutes, he should be in consideration at 5,400 as well. He's a nice pivot, too, if we don't have news on Daniel Tice, let's just say, before lock, and you have the extra 1,000. I wouldn't mind going up to PJ Washington at that point. Okay. I think that's it for this game. Dwight Powell, I would really focus in on Dallas. Like, if you're looking for value later in the afternoon, because for some reason value hasn't opened up, I would definitely give strong consideration to trying to figure out where the Dallas usage is going to go outside of Doncic and pairing Doncic with that player. Because if you get that right, that definitely could be high upside in tournaments. Because Dallas is 12-point favorites, which is massive, but it's really tough to see who the hell else is going to shoot the ball other than Luka Doncic. So if you can find the next guy, it's a perfect spot. San Antonio versus Milwaukee here, 228 total. Milwaukee 12-point favorites. Giannis had one of his better games of the year against Minnesota because, well, they needed to play well against Minnesota. Kind of a New Year's Day snoozer. I kind of expect Milwaukee to kind of show up and play really well here. So Giannis will kind of be only on teams with Spurs. If Spurs players can keep it close, then Giannis will kind of do well. So I'll kind of create those rules. I wonder how LaMarcus Aldridge has done against this team. Yeah, I would expect that. LaMarcus Aldridge kind of fits in the John Collins type mold. Aaron Gordon, Jonathan Isaac. Gordon got hurt in this game, like Jonathan Isaac, who's gone off in this spot. I could see LaMarcus Aldridge putting up a ceiling game here. This is a really kind of Jabari Parker type player too. I'm not sure if I already mentioned him. I think I said John Collins, but Jabari Parker, similar situation. I really like the kind of guys that are not afraid to shoot it from the mid-range and explode to the basket here, and Aldridge can do that, and I really like this spot. So if I'm playing, I think the Aldridge-Giannis pairing is one I would really like to have on a few teams. If, I'm in Vegas, so I'm not playing, but sadly, I wish I was, because I think people are going to mess this up. This is definitely a prime Aldridge-Giannis rule spot. Like, Giannis isn't going to hit his ceiling if LaMarcus Aldridge doesn't hit his. The matchup's too good. There's not enough other true scoring on San Antonio to make that happen. So, DeJounte Murray is playing, right? Ooh, personal. Ooh, I missed that. I had this on my notes, and I missed that one. Personal. What's he missing out for? DeJounte Murray. He is... Oh, man, this is going to be a really interesting tournament game, then. Okay, cool. It's just a one-game miss. Well, I mean, as you guys know, well, maybe not all of you know. If you listen to my Twitch stream, you know that DeJounte Murray and Derek White never play together. Well, without DeJounte Murray, that frees up Derek White to play all the minutes. His price is up a little bit to 4,600, but I think he can get back into that 30, 35-minute spot here. And again, shooters can shoot well against this team. So don't hate that if you're looking for a point guard value, but there's other good point guards. You probably won't need them. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to just force something in here. Like, I think this is pretty straightforward. I think this is clearly just play Aldridge and Giannis. Bledsoe's probably too cheap at 5,400. It's not the world's best matchup, but he does have ceiling at this kind of price, although the minutes are probably on a minutes restriction still, it looks like here. So it looks like, probably pass on Bledsoe. He's probably still on that 24, 25-minute limit. Yeah, I think it's just Aldridge and Giannis. Like, I keep trying to find something else. Like, DeRozan's a really bad fit here. He just doesn't shoot any threes. That's why Aldridge is just such a good play. Like, if the Spurs keep this close, it will be LaMarcus Aldridge. So, sometimes keep it simple, stupid is the way to do it. And if I'm playing guys in this game, it's Aldridge and Giannis paired together. Detroit, Golden State. Oh boy, we're gonna be here a little while with the injury reports. So if you need a coffee, now might be the time to go get it, because this is gonna take a while. So let me just make sure. I will actually start with the more injured team, which actually for once is not the Golden State Warriors. It actually is the Detroit Pistons. So Andre Drummond is not on the injury report with a stomach bug. Cool. Bruce Brown, illness, questionable, I would imagine. Not on the injury report. All right, this is getting a little healthier. Blake Griffin is out. Okay, so he's gonna miss a few more games. Markieff Morris with the foot is out, and I don't think we've heard anything back on Luke Kennard. It'll be reevaluated on January 7th, so that's a couple days away. Cool. Okay, so that's three rotation players out, and two that who the hell knows what status they're in. And then we've got D'Angelo Russell, who I believe has been ruled out. Yep, he's out. Willie Cauley-Stein, I think, is questionable. He's questionable. And Kevon Looney really isn't really a huge factor. He's playing like 10 minutes a night. Yeah, he's out against the Pistons, too. Okay. All right, so that's basically the entire team out. The first thing I always do is when D'Angelo Russell's out, I look at the price of Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson III. Glenn Robinson III has played consistently better when there's no D'Angelo Russell on the floor. He plays more minutes. He takes more shots. He does just about everything. Even against the Minnesota, where they only put up 84 points as a team, he still was able to hit 5x value. I like Greg Robinson in this spot as well against Detroit, who will have their own defensive issues because they're so short-handed as well. So I like him. Alec Burks, 6,000. He was just in massive foul trouble on Thursday night. Annoying. It happens. So I don't hate that spot as well. Good bounce-back spot. Draymond is fine. I just don't know if he's going to go breaking any slates in this kind of spot. And I think they're kind of just limiting his minutes unless it's one of those big marquee games. So I probably would stay away. Derrick Rose on that 26-minute limit. He's okay. Nothing special. Drummond, he's a nice center pivot off of Jokic, but I'm not wild about it. Like, there really isn't anything in this game I'm wild about. You know what I am wild about is Sekou. If they start Sekou again. Sekou was good. Like, Sekou played well. He played 27 minutes, went 4 of 11 from the field, and made 0 for 4 from 3. So, and he put up for 26 fantasy points. So, and he was in 5 fouls too. He played well. Like, he guarded Kawhi Leonard. I kind of want to see more of Sekou starting. He's still min-price. I really have no issue using him if he's starting. Now, are we going to know if he's going to start? I guess we don't. But I can't imagine with no Blake and no Markieff why he wouldn't start again, considering it went pretty darn well. And he also plays garbage time if it gets out of hand. So I like Sekou. I think he's a nice tournament option. I wouldn't go crazy with him. You know, the guy's played like 50 minutes of NBA basketball in his entire career. That actually might be a stretch. yeah, it's probably about 50 minutes of NBA basketball, but I was impressed with what I saw against the Clippers, so I would not be afraid to use him in a tournament if you need that min-price 3,500 power forward. I imagine he's min-priced over on DraftKings still as well. V, they're playing him a ton of minutes, but he really isn't doing anything with them, so I wouldn't start getting crazy with him. So really for me, it's still kind of just Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson for the Warriors. Marquise Chris, I guess, is a good option as well if you think he's going to play the minutes. Played 22 minutes against Minnesota, subbing in for Willie Cauley-Stein. Whatever. I'm not wild about him. I think he's fine. But for me, it's really kind of like the top end plays are Burks and Glenn Robinson III. And then on Detroit, it really kind of is just Sekou. I'm not Bruce Brown, I guess, if he starts, but if he's coming off the bench, I don't really want to play that roulette game with I guess he'd probably play 30 minutes. I guess Bruce Brown's fine if you're looking for a tournament shooting guard that maybe is a little bit underowned. Last game of the night, and probably saving the best for last, New Orleans Pelicans at the Sacramento Kings. This should be a pretty clean injury report. I'm pretty sure neither team has any real issues here for once. New Orleans is Zion. That we already knew about that. And Sacramento. Oh, Bogdanovic hurt his ankle again. That makes sense. Doubtful for the Pelicans game. Okay, well, if he's doubtful, this is pretty simple. You're going to play a lot of Fox. He's still underpriced. The Thursday stream, I said Fox is going to break a slate at some point, and I'm not going to play him until he does it. Well, he broke the slate. A lot of it was steal and block oriented, the 21 fantasy points from it, but honestly, you could have taken away 12 fantasy points, and he still would have killed his price. Good matchup here against the Pelicans. Pelicans on the back-to-back. Really no reason why Fox can't pick up the pace and get those turnovers against a pretty sloppy Pelicans team. So I love Fox here. I like Buddy Hield as well. I like Rashawn Holmes in this spot. I think Derek Favors has a really nice bounce back spot after kind of oh wow, he got there late. Wow. I mean, it's another really good spot for Derek Favors. No real true center can kind of play center with Holmes or play against Bielitsa. They can kind of switch it. They can kind of do a lot of things like Derek Favors as well. Bielitsa's still too cheap, $4,700. He's a guy that's just always going to pop my model. He has to make some shots, but I like him. Harrison Barnes, if you want to have your guy on the floor and score fantasy points, he's your man. But, it's 36 minutes against the Pelicans. I kind of have to mention him by default. He definitely could back his way into 30 fantasy points by not doing a whole lot of things other than rebounding. But other than that, I'm not going to get too carried away here. I really think it's kind of just the big three for Sacramento: Fox, Holmes, Hield. And then for the Pelicans, it's Favors. If you want to pay for Ingram, that's fine. Played about as well as he could, I think, against the Lakers in that first half. Just started missing a ton of shots, but I kind of just think it's a letdown game after that emotional return to the Lakers. They traded him away. I kind of just don't like the spot for him. It's a good matchup. If you wanted to stack it, like if you're playing Fox, Holmes, and Hield, I would stack Favors and Ingram together. But I think that's kind of more of a long shot than kind of a optimal play. I like Fox, Holmes, and Hield, though. I think they're three of the better plays on the entire slate. That's it. We've done it. We've gone through all 9 games. So I'm just going to kind of just scroll through the positions real quick and kind of just give you a kind of a quick recap. Just if trust me, if I love the guy earlier and I forget him in the recap, still love him. But Luka Doncic for me is the top play overall. And for value, Sekou, Favors, I like a lot. McRae, Aaron Holiday are the type of guys I like. But I just really want to emphasize Luka Doncic. His usage rate in this spot is just going to be through the roof. Don't get cute. Please just don't get cute with Luka Doncic. If you like this video, please subscribe and like and leave a comment. We're trying to figure out if we should do more of these, really. This is kind of a test balloon. So if you like the videos, please leave a comment saying you do, or if you don't. Honestly, we'll take that advice as well. So we kind of know how to give you guys the best content possible. Again, please subscribe, like if you haven't already. And with that, guys, we'll see you next time.